Yo, everyone, welcome to the Smash Pod, brought to you by SmashUp Fantasy Sports, the only next-gen fantasy game that lets you choose your players, choose your Smash cards, and then dominate your opponents. I'm Chef. I'm here with Hawk. We're here on Reaction Monday following Week 3, which again had some crazy things happening. You ready to dice this up, Hawk, and talk about our top risers and fallers after Week 3?
I am, and I was raging mad, so I went with the nice soft pink background to just, try to mellow myself a little bit after this week.
Yeah, nothing like softening you up because you're just so hard.
You know what? Rough and tumble, I say.
All right, well, let's dive into it. Just a little news item, and we'll cover it a little bit today, I feel like, in our rises and fallers. But one of the big things that happened over the weekend, Andy Dalton's first game, taking over for Bryce Young. The Panthers won big, and he beat the Raiders 36-22. And the Red Rifle just stepped in and basically just smacked him around.
Yeah, but, good on the Panthers. They're getting out in front of this, and I read that in response to this emerging quarterback controversy, Coach Canales has already announced that going forward, the Panthers will continue to play the Raiders every week. So I think that's a great way to handle this for them to try to get to 5 wins on the season.
That's a good strategy, just play the Raiders every week. You could probably get a few wins under your belt.
Won't matter who the quarterback is. You're going to win a few games there.
Yeah. And the Raiders did look pretty good coming into Week 3, though. They were pretty big favorites.
Yeah, these jokes landed a little bit better when the Niners were winning and we kind of punched down. And now I kind of feel like, who are we to talk? So I don't know. Maybe it should be a Niners joke.
I'm still not over that. I don't know if I'm ready to talk about and process that game against the Rams. I mean, it was a complete and utter failure. I mean, the big news, though, is Juwan Jennings. Like, he stepped up so huge. He was in one of my lineups. I don't know about you if you had any Juwan Jennings, but I did have Juwan in one of my lineups yesterday.
I had him in a SmashUp lineup. I think the other big news is they say for who the bell tolls, and I think it tolls for Ronnie Bell, who a couple of big drops, and I can't imagine he's got a lot of time left on the squad.
Ronnie Bell, I mean, he was terrible. He had a huge drop. Not to get too much into it, he had a huge drop on third down that would have iced the game. I mean, they would have got first. They would have set up for field goal positioning, and they would have ran out the clock. I mean, that one drop led to a big turn in fortunes for the Niners.
Sad day.
Sad day. All right, on that note, we're going to discuss our top risers and fallers after Week 3. I feel like this is something we do every week because the tides turn pretty significantly after each week. We get random tidbits of information, or there's just big performances and players just begin to either skyrocket or just plummet in terms of their stock. But I'm going to list my top 5 risers of the week or after Week 3. Hawk, you're going to discuss your top 5 fallers. But let's just jump into it. Okay, so here we go. Chef's top 5 risers of the week are number 1, Malik Neighbors. Just a major target hog. He's basically matchup proof at this point. He's going to be locked and loaded in lineups every week going forward after posting 8 catches, 78 yards, 2 touchdowns. Number 2, Sam Darnold of the Vikings. He is for real. After 2 weeks, wasn't really sure what to make of it. Is this a fluke? Is this a mirage? But after 3 weeks, he leads the league in 10 touchdowns, and he's on an MVP run right now. Number 3, Rashee Rice. He's basically the top receiver. There is no question about it. He has taken over that from Kelsey on the Chiefs. Mahomes loves him after posting a 12-catch, 110-yard, 1-touchdown performance. He is the man out in KC and is definitely a top 10 wide receiver going forward the rest of the season, no doubt about it. Number 4, Derrick Henry. King Henry finally arrives. He had been trending upwards into Week 3, played against the Dallas Cowboys, ripped off 150 yards, 2 touchdowns, now RB3 on the season. This is the King Henry that people were waiting for all season. He arrived in Week 3. Keep him locked and loaded in your lineups going forward for the rest of the season. He's the man that you're looking for out of that spot. And number 5, overall, the Carolina offense. We just talked about this, but Andy Dalton, the Red Rocket, the Red Rifle, he's in there now. Bye-bye, Bryce Young. Hello, Chuba Hubbard and Deontay Johnson. He's really made that lineup something that can be fantasy useful going forward. You're getting 115 yards rushing, 5 yards receiving from Hubbard, 122 yards receiving for Deontay Johnson. This is an offense that's playable now, and Andy Dalton is a big part of it.
Love it. I love the list. I love anything that has the words Sam Darnold MVP. Imagine being a Panthers fan and you just start drinking kerosene when you hear that.
Yeah. Gotta love it. I don't know how Bryce Young feels after not only getting benched, but then you see someone step in after you and it just like absolutely kills it, leads the team to a victory. That can't feel good, especially after you have your girlfriend stolen by Tyrese Maxey.
Which might be why he was struggling. But I'll say this, Bryce Young would never admit it, but he was sitting on the sideline just secretly praying that Andy Dalton failed.
Oh
Like
yeah,
it's
oh
like,
yeah,
okay, and then he
100%.
comes and gets sacked 8 times and throws 5 picks, and it'll show everyone it's the team. But this kind of success, I feel bad for Bryce a little bit.
Yeah. Well, let's jump into it a little bit. Before we go to your followers, want to get your take on a few of these. Let's go back on the top of the list. Malik Neighbors. I'll tell you this. I actually had him on one of my benches in one of my leagues because I just had a
Ooh.
really, really deep wide receiver room. I had DK who went off. I had Rasheed Rice. Neighbors was someone that had one good game and one okay game, and going against Cleveland that has obviously a very respectable defense. I wasn't sure if I was going to play him ahead of Rice and DK. But I mean, now I know I've got to put him in lineups every week.
By the way, I love the humble brag here. You're like, man, I had him on my bench because I drafted so well and my pants were bulging so much that I just didn't have any room for him in my lineup.
Yeah, my pant legs were so full that I couldn't put Neighbors in my lineup. But no, I mean, he's forced his way into being in lineups every week. Like you just said it and forget it. What can you say about it? I don't know if you saw the game, but he was making incredible catches. It's not like Daniel Jones was carving up the secondary. Like Neighbors was just making acrobatic catches after acrobatic catches.
Like a good Neighbors, Malik is there. You just put him in your lineup every week. He's dependable.
Yeah, and now he is number one, by the way, in wide receiver in fantasy. So there you go,
Phenomenal.
Malik Neighbors. And Darnold, thoughts on Darnold? I mean, he put up another big game, 4 touchdowns, didn't have to do much. I mean, they beat a strong Houston team, and the defense is really respectable there as well. I mean, that was not what I was expecting. 34-7. I expected a better game, but the Vikings ran away with it.
I remember from the preseason, I was talking Darnold up. I was saying he's going to be good in that offense. Great weapons around him. People are overrating Cousins a bit and the impact he had. And then I had Jefferson as my number 3 pick overall. I had him over guys like Tyreek and Chase, who I didn't trust quite as much. So, no, I mean, I'm happy for Darnold. He's been through a lot, so good to see.
Yes, you were saying Cousins was overrated. You did think Darnold was going to do okay. You did not predict this at all.
Well, I didn't predict Darnold MVP, but Darnold having.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, I've drafted. I've got him on. I mean, my bench, admittedly, in multiple leagues, but
there you go.
Not surprised me he's having a good season. Obviously, we'll see if he maintains an MVP rate, but like I said, feel good for him. He's been through a lot.
Yeah, for sure. No, always happy to see someone playing really well. Just wish that didn't include the Niners in week 2, but
well, hopefully we'll be saying this about Bryce Young in 3 or 4 years.
Hopefully. Number 3, Rasheed Rice. I mean, he just continues to impress. He's like very reliable and consistent. And I feel like that passing offense now in KC with Mahomes is being funneled to Rasheed Rice. It seems like he's a lock for 90 to 100 yards receiving every week. And Kelsey, I don't know if he's washed, but they definitely are not going to be utilizing him as they have in the past in terms of volume. So Rasheed Rice looks like a really awesome pick, and his value is so high relative to people just bouncing on him in draft season because of all of his offseason troubles.
Yeah, I mean, he's always had the talent. I had some doubts coming into the year if the same volume would be there as last year, but I mean, he's stolen Kelsey's volume. Brown is out. So obviously this is a really good situation. He wound up not getting suspended. So, the other worry was that he comes back in week 9, he's rusty, and Mahomes has a rapport with Brown and Worthy. But now, no, Rice is just the man. And I think, you don't get enough credit for going to his house and downloading the Uber app for him. And ever since he started taking Ubers, he's taken off.
I mean, who knows? Maybe that is actually happening, right? And then now we have Derrick Henry. I mean, finally that big Derrick Henry game, got like 20 plus touches, 150 yards, 2 touchdowns. Like I said, this is the performance that we were expecting from King Henry, and I think Baltimore was looking for. They're doing a lot of the option run plays where the defense is just following Derrick Henry into the pile, and then Lamar's like dashing off to the side for a touchdown, or vice versa, right? And so I think with the Ravens, if they can take leads, which they're a great team, you expect them to have a lead over most teams throughout the season. You'll get more of these games because Henry is a little bit game script dependent. But absolutely, I expect the script to be pointing in his favor most of the season.
Well, and I think what we've seen so far this season, exactly why he kind of fell into the second round, because he can be game scripted out a bit. But this is why you didn't want to let him fall too far, because he's still the king. He's still got at least one more season left. And with that Baltimore line, with the threat of Lamar being able to run, which keeps defenses off balance, it's just a really good situation for him.
Yep. And by the way, his schedule the next 4 or 5 weeks is Buffalo, Cincinnati, Washington, Tampa Bay, Cleveland. Not exactly a murderer's row of run defenses. So expect more big performances over the next 4 to 5 weeks.
That Washington game, he will be in my SmashUp lineup.
Yeah, exactly. And then lastly, I mentioned the Carolina offense. I mean, we just mentioned it a few minutes ago, but out goes Bryce Young, in comes Andy Dalton. and just lights them up. I mean, he had such a big game, but I don't want to focus too much on Dalton because a lot of people didn't have Dalton in their lineups. But on teams, they do have Chuba Hubbard. They do have Deontay Johnson, who was a popular like sleeper pick in draft season. And even Adam Thielen made an appearance and scored a touchdown before he got hurt. But this offense is now being opened up immediately by a very playable Andy Dalton. I have some Chuba Hubbard. I have some Deontay Johnson. And then immediately you see these guys start to impact the box scores.
I agree. I would say at the same time, if I had Deontay Johnson, I might see if I could sell high at the moment. I will be curious to see how Andy does when he keeps playing, when there's a little bit more video of him from this year, and when he's playing a team that's not the Raiders. So there is a legitimate possibility. I think he obviously makes them better. He makes these guys more playable. He's a pocket passer, but there may be an opportunity that someone in your league remembers the hype on Deontay Johnson, is willing to buy him at a premium.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're not going to get a first or second round type of pick for him in exchange for Deontay Johnson. But these players literally are being resurrected from the dead with Bryce Young at quarterback. And now they're either playable in a flex position, or if you're desperate, or to your point, maybe they have trade value now, right? Yep. So being resurrected from the dead to now being involved in either trades or being playable in your lineups, I mean, I think that's huge.
Let me make a pitch. New nickname for Andy Dalton. Can we call him the Necromancer? Because he is bringing these guys back from the dead.
That's very like Magic the Gathering-esque.
The Necromancer. We're bringing new fans. It's all good, right?
Yeah. I do have a really quick bonus. We don't have to talk about it too much, but I think, again, Jawan Jennings was the man yesterday. 11 catches, 175 yards, 3 tutties. Debo's out, Kittle's out. So obviously he may not get the same opportunity again, but he might for the next week or two. And I think when everyone comes back, I think the silver lining is the Niners can go 3 wide receiver sets and have the most talented, arguably, set of 3 wide receivers on the field of any other team in the league, because now you can see what Jawan Jennings is capable of. It was phenomenal. These weren't just gimmies. He was making crazy Randy Moss type plays.
Yeah, I mean, we might have the best receivers of any non-playoff team. It's a legit possibility.
They'll be great sitting on their couches in December, January. So, all right. So that rounds out our top risers. Really great to see those performances, but sorry, Hawk, you've got to cover the sad news in the rainy days of week 3. So why don't you talk through your list of the top fallers after week 3?
All right, let me give you the top fallers from week 3. Number 1, DeAndre Swift. He's been on a downward trend, but 1.8 yards per carry, and frankly, the Chicago line looks like absolute garbage. Number 2, Calvin Ridley. I hate to say it, he's far removed from his Falcons days. He is looking washed. Will Levis cannot throw anywhere near him, and the offense is just terrible. Number 3, Keenan Allen. Really feel bad picking on a guy who's injured, but he's getting Wally pipped right now. Roma Dunze looks fantastic, and I just don't know there's anything for him to come back to. Number 4, Mark Andrews. The guy's gone from having a 30% target rate in 2021 all the way down to 9% this year. It just doesn't look like it's going to happen, especially in the new King Henry offense. And then number 5, man, I hate to say it, but Anthony Richardson. Maybe this one isn't as permanent, still a chance for redemption, but the passing numbers are atrocious. 49% completion percentage. His touchdowns per run that we talked about in the preseason being unsustainable has dropped back down to normal, and he's just not giving the value you want to see either in the real NFL or in fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great list, even though some of those make me cringe because I do have a player or two from that list. But let's get into it. Let's dice it up. Let's talk about your list from the top. So any additional thoughts on Swift? Why do you think he's a top faller for you?
Look, the guy was not seen as a Derrick Henry. He was not even seen as a Kieran Williams or someone on that level, but he was someone a lot of people has an RB2 or a flex. 1.8 yards per carry. Zero red zone touches. 46 in juke rate, 38th in evaded tackle from our friends at Player Profiler. He's getting only 3.3 targets per game. So he's, even when the game script is going, more pass heavy, that was something he's done well in the past. He's not getting the checkdowns from Caleb Williams. And the problem is that Chicago line is so bad, it's hard to see a path to redemption. It's not like he's just gotten unlucky. It's not like he was banged up. It's just a bad situation. What do you think?
Yeah, exactly. I think with a poor O-line, a lot of players were hoping that there could be something to prop up his value, being a big part of the passing game or possibly getting any red zone or goal line touches, even though that's never been his forte. But the fact that he has 0 red zone touches, he's not a big part of the passing game right now. And even just overall, that passing game is just really suspect, even though Caleb Williams had a really fraudulent 360 yards yesterday. That offense overall is just tough to trust. And DeAndre Swift just has never had the vision. Like that's been the knock on his career. And there's a reason why he's bounced around already. So yeah, Swift for me, his price tag was too high in the draft season, and now it's playing out. So definitely could see why he's a big faller. Okay, how about next for you?
Calvin Ridley. This is a guy you and I used to like. Remember, he was on the Falcons. We used to
Yeah.
bid. It was you and I are the last two going to bid for him in the draft because he was phenomenal when we started to take over for Julio Jones. But for several years removed, and there's a lot of hope. Last year he's going to bounce back. It was a bit up and down. There's maybe some thinking that he was shaking off the rust. But here, let's start with the good news on him, right? Number one in route participation, number one in air yards, number one in ADOT, which is average depth of target.
That's promising, right? Some of those stats there.
But everything else is bad. Number 71 in catchable target rate.
Ooh.
Levis is throwing
that's Deshaun Watson-esque.
No, that makes Deshaun Watson look good. Like, you're looking at that. Deshaun Watson's looking at that going, man, that is bad. When Deshaun Watson's saying that, you know you've got trouble. But he's also number 37 in yards per target, number 53 in separation. We're going to have to just realize the fact that Atlanta Falcons' Calvin Ridley is not coming back. He may have a role in the NFL, but at this point, he really just shouldn't have much role in your fantasy team. He's 3 games in now. He's averaging 45 yards per game. He had one solid game. The second game was 70 yards and a touchdown, but it's starting to look like that is his ceiling. Fill in for a bye week, sure. But at this point, I would not want to be relying on Ridley in my life.
Yeah, obviously you hit the nail on the head with all of those. He's just going to be one of those guys that people drafted and have on their teams. They're just not going to know when to play him. He will have some of those weeks where he'll drop 85 yards and touchdown. He just won't be in your lineups. And then when you decide to play him, he'll go 2 for 28. So
look, no disrespect to Allen, who's been hurt, but he may be getting Wally pipped at this point by Rome Odunze. Komet, DJ Moore, they're getting a lot of targets. I don't think he's completely washed. I think when he comes back, he'll have a role on the team. But at this point, I think fantasy-wise, he may just take value away from DJ and Rome. I don't know that he's going to have standalone value as a fantasy player. Would you agree?
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. And I think everyone was concerned about that crowded receiver room in Chicago, and it looks like Allen might be the odd person out. So, yeah, I agree with that.
So the next up, I've got Mark Andrews. And look, week 1, gave him a little bit of a mulligan. He came back in week 2, and he got 50 yards. And maybe it looked like he was building some rapport. He was kind of getting healthy from injury. And then last week, 1 target, 0 catches. Now, to be fair, Lamar Jackson only threw 15 passes and rushed 14 times. So there's a bit of game script. But that's always how the Ravens have been. And a little bit of a fact on Mark Andrews. So in 2021, he had a 30% target share from the Ravens. 2022, 29%. 2023, 22%, already coming down. This year, 9%. That may go up a bit, but there's going to be plenty of weeks where Lamar Jackson throws 20 passes or fewer. When Andrews is getting 30% of those, he was playable. If that number even comes down to like 15, 20%, he's going to be tough to play as a tight end.
Yeah, I mean, add in the fact that they have King Henry this year. Lamar's still going to get some carries. You have Isaiah Likely there. Zay Flowers is actually their best wide receiver that they've had in some time. It does not add up for Andrews having anything close to his peak years. So while he might be a little bit of buy low, he's definitely someone whose stock is lower than previous years. So definitely agree with him being a fall.
As weird as it sounds, he might even be a sell high. Not high in the sense that he's done anything, but there may be someone in your league who recognizes the name and thinks because of his name he is good. So if you can go get something for him, package him with another player, now might be the time to sell.
Yeah, maybe. I actually think he could be better than he is now. He's probably at his lowest with a 4% target share, but we'll see.
Better than 1 target, 0 yards. But no, yeah. I mean, you're right. Look, if you want to gamble, but it might be, if you can get rid of him with his name value and package him with someone for a better player, his name might carry, like Kelsey, right? His name might carry more weight than his future production. All right. And then last but not least, and this is going to be a painful one for Ming. Ming, I know you're already sitting down. You might want to start hyperventilating a little bit into a bag.
It's okay. I mean, I only have him on one team, so that's fine.
And that pain, I know, but even that team, you're seizing up. I see. Do you need?
No, I mean, you can discuss Anthony Richardson, but for some reason, I think you think I'm into Anthony Richardson is more than I am. I have him on one team. I got him at a good value in the 6th round at the time, right? And I have a good backup. So he sucks right now, but I also think he's going to be better than what he's done so far. But yeah, go ahead, dive into it because I agree with some of the things.
I agree with you, and that's actually why I have him number 5 because I think he's a guy who could rebound a bit, but. You may remember we talked about, I think we're both a little bit colder on him in the preseason. Really poor passing from 2 years ago. we talked about in the preseason, unsustainable rushing rate. He was scoring a touchdown like once every 30 carries, which if you look at other running quarterbacks, usually closer to one every 74. And he's not a goal line guy like a Josh Allen. So this year, 49% completion percentage, 4% touchdown versus 8% interception rate. His poor throws are getting him into trouble this year. He's still getting his 40 yards a game rushing, but he's not getting all the touchdowns that he did last season. Again, as expected, he has regressed to the mean. So I think he could turn the season around. You could even argue he's a bit of a buy low. But if you draft him thinking you're getting Anthony Richardson from the 2.5 games he played last year, I think pretty clearly that's not happening. And so it's time to level set expectations a bit.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely falling from like a weekly rankings perspective. I do think he's going to be better. I do think he's a decent buy low, especially if you have, it's a one quarterback league and you have a good backup, right? Like why not have someone with the potential, that upside who, can do it, especially if they just fall out of the race and they're just going to try to develop them all year. Maybe he'll have some big games later in the season and he'll put some stuff together. I do really like Shane Steichen as a QB coach, or coach in general with QBs, obviously. So I trust that. So maybe there's still time to turn it around, but yeah, he's not looking great so far. So he's someone that would probably be on benches if I have a good backup on a team.
Yeah, and to be fair, I have him in the league too, but as a backup. So he's staying on the bench. I'm not cutting him, mind you. He's a guy who could absolutely turn. But if you're someone who took him in the 4th to 6th round at his ADP where he's going, I would just say plot a backup option if you don't have one already. Look who's out there, look who you can trade for, because I'd be nervous relying on Anthony Richardson.
Sam Darnold. I think Sam Darnold might be popular. Finally, people are like, okay, 3 weeks of good play. I'll buy Sam Darnold or maybe Geno.
Imagine coming to the year and saying, hey, you're going to want Sam Darnold instead of Anthony Richardson. You would have been committed. So we're group thinking to himself. So again, this is the reason why he was playing great. Look, we all believe the fantasy gods are against us. So they play great. We start them, and suddenly it's, they get struck by lightning. So there we go.
Exactly. All right, cool. Thanks, Hawk. That wraps up our top 5, or I guess bottom 5. Is it top 5 fallers? Bottom 5 fallers? I don't know. They've just fallen to mediocrity, at least for now. We're hoping that they have a return to grace, but some of these folks we don't have much hope for. But
even bottom, just what they are.
That's right. All right. Well, that wraps up our episode. Appreciate you listening along. We listed our top 5 risers, our top 5 fallers. Get them out of your lineups. Bench them. They're terrible. No, I'm just kidding. Or maybe buy low. We'll see. Crazy things happen over the course of fantasy season. It's a long season. But Hawk, why don't you do what you always do?
Right. So go follow us on whatever podcast software you're listening to so you can hear all these wonderful shows. Then go to smashupsports.com and register to play 3 weekly tournaments and league play and single player coming soon. And then go to all the other social media, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, probably Facebook, Friendster maybe, and follow us at SmashUp Sports. Put us in your top 8 on MySpace and put a fun song on there.
We'll right. Hopefully I'm in your top 8, or hopefully we're in your top 5 risers. All right, for Chef and Hawk, we're the Smash Pod, and we'll see you next time.
Like a good neighbor, Malik is there.